Welcome to the 100th episode of the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine.
Woo! Yeah! We did it!
I'm Karl, and on this very special episode, I am joined by not one, not two, but all three of our co-hosts, presenting to you, dear listeners, Peter. Say hi, Peter.
Hi.
And joining us from Denmark, Mads. Say hi, Mads.
Klaus.
And all the way across the ocean, we have John. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Excellent. Somebody caught the joke. And for the first time on a regular place on the episode, as opposed to the little cut-in thing, we have our resident warden of the Department of Corrections, Ethan.
That's me. Hi.
Excellent. Everybody. So, for this special 100th episode, we are not going to be traveling back in time to look at news. That'll be back again next week, dear listeners. So those who are only here for that, you know you can now stop the play.
Stop saying things like that, Karl. Come on.
For everybody else, we are here today for a 7 Minutes in Heaven spectacular.
Yeah.
All five
There's
of
not 7 people, though, unfortunately. We couldn't have that many.
No.
But we'll have to make do with 35 minutes in heaven then.
Karl, I'm loving your intro. I'm really loving it.
Thank you. It's going splendidly, just as I expected it with everybody.
Very smooth.
So, what we've done is we have sent everybody's name through a random generator, and we came up with a combination. So each one of us has made a list of 3 games. The only qualification was they had to be at least 20 years old, and they have not previously appeared as a 7 Minute in Heaven challenge. And for those who are just joining us for the very first time on the 100th episode, the 7 Minutes in Heaven is a segment we do every week on the regular episodes where the co-host has to play a game from that month that they have not played before. So each one of us put together a list of 3 games that are potential 7 Minutes in Heaven titles. And another one of us, randomly chosen, as previously stated, is going to have to play that game for 7 minutes. And then tell us all about the experience. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Maybe.
Ready.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Excellent. The enthusiasm is overwhelming. Now, let's get started. Who is going to be playing first? Ethan, you, or Peter? Peter.
I'm gonna go first.
Look at you. First. Yes, Peter.
I was the first on the podcast right after you. I'm going to go first.
There you go.
There it is.
Now, Peter, who chose your games?
So, my game was chosen by, and now you asked me something, I really have to look that up because I'm not at all prepared.
Oh, this is going great. Yeah. Oh.
So,
John.
My game was chosen by John, so
yes,
of course, I knew that.
Yes. So, John, you made a list of 3 games. Tell us about the games you chose.
So I cheated a little bit. I'm going to come out real clean. We did a DOS episode for our Retro Game Squad podcast as kind of like a separate COVID piece, and I picked my top 3 from the games that I picked for that episode, and that's what you had to pick from. The first one was Death Rally, followed by Blasto, Aliens of Gold, and Wacky Wheels.
Excellent. And so, Peter, you are going to be playing?
I'm playing Death Rally because I haven't played any of those games, haven't even heard of any of those, so it was an easy choice for me to pick right the first one.
Excellent. Okay, so with that being said, Peter, are you ready to play 7 minutes of Death Rally?
Oh, I'm absolutely ready to get absolutely destroyed by this.
Excellent. Then let's get to it.
Get ready to go.
Okay, welcome back, Peter, from your 7 minutes in heaven. So, based on your time with Death Rally, what was Death Rally?
Oh, well, hard to describe, actually. I wouldn't say it was a major success for me. It's a top-down racing game, and you're racing other players. As I said, in a top-down perspective, you can gear up. Well, basically, it's the predecessor to Mario Kart, isn't it? You gear up your car with shooting equipment, and you're doing some laps against other cars, trying to shoot them, trying to spike them, killing some pedestrians that are unworthy, and you try to come out on top, which I didn't.
So based on Peter's playthrough, this is a single car race, because 90% of the time there would only be one car in the screen. I don't know why, Peter, but that's just how it was.
I mean, it's really about you and your car.
He was that far ahead.
Yes.
Experience.
He was just waiting for the other cars to blow each other up so that he could then just cozy
Which is a legitimate strategy in some vehicle combat games.
Exactly.
It worked in the first race.
So just 20 more rounds, and I would have been first.
Increase the lap count.
So now you did not actually succeed in figuring out how to use the weapons, correct?
You know, I'm a pacifist person.
A German pacifist.
So I actually decided against using weapons. However, I like to defend myself, so I decided to use spikes. Which, again, being a pacifist person, didn't really be of any use to me because the other cars just drove away and I couldn't catch up to them. So the spikes was not the best investment I've made. Because during the race, you earn money, which then between the races you can spend in order to repair your car, which I desperately needed, as well as gearing up on either rockets or spikes or, whatever. So
Gotcha. Sounds like fun.
Yeah. Economic simulation as well. So racing games,
perfect
strategy
game for Peter.
Very much so. So, John, can you give us a little bit of background on this one?
Yes. So this game is one that I grew up with. It's from the whole Apogee crew. I mentioned that if you go through the character selection, you can actually choose Duke Nukem as one of the characters. So this game is just it's got a lot of gritty personality to it, but under the hood, it's just your standard top-down combat racer. It came out in 1996, and it's a little before. I'm trying to think how in proximity this came out to Carmageddon or those kind of games, because it's definitely going for that kind of personality.
Carmageddon is 97.
Yeah, it would have been closer.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and this is Remedy. I mean, these are the same guys who gave us Max Payne, for crying out loud. So violence is not an unknown commodity. And this was a shareware version. This wasn't the commercial version of the game.
Yes, yeah. So there's there's all the register me nag screens that you come to expect from that. Yeah. I chose that purposefully too, because that was part of living in the DOS era. You get those. I had those PC Gamer discs from way back when that would come just stocked with DOS titles, and I'd have such a field day with those. And that was my first exposure. I noticed that Peter played the Windows port of it that they had later done, because obviously DOS didn't stick around that way. Thank God.
Now, Mads, you made a comparison to a particularly famous Amiga title.
Yeah, I was actually thinking this was a complete ripoff of Supercars and Supercars 2, which are games that are 5-6 years older. From 1990 and 1991, we had the Supercars and Supercars 2 on the mighty Amiga. And those games were brilliant top-down racers where I seem to remember in the second game, at least, it was the same as here, where you could buy weapons, you could buy upgrades, you could buy new tires and engines and all that stuff, and you needed to repair your car between races, and you'd earn money by getting the right positions in the races, of course. And it would run a lot faster, and there would be up to 12 opponents at the same time, I think. So the mighty Amiga kind of blasted the DOS computer.
But this has software rendered flat shaded polygons, Matt.
That's right. So as I said, the Supercars cars looked a lot better.
I'm gonna let you have that one because I never played it. I gotta put that on my list to go through.
So I love Supercars and Supercars 2. We had a huge competition on Supercars 2 a couple of years ago on the Retro Asylum Game Club. It was brilliant. We spent so many hours just perfecting all of the races. And there's this when you go all the way through a league, you can get up to, I think, 40 points. And we were getting 40 points on the first 2 leagues. And on the expert league, I think we got up to around the 35, 36 point mark. Just really perfecting all of those races. It was great fun.
Yeah, well, Supercars has the one downside that the way that the screen is set up and everything, if you haven't memorized the track, you will never make a turn.
Like most top-down racers, yeah.
Yeah, some
are worse.
It's annoying as hell in that regard.
Yes.
And if you have 2 players playing, it becomes even worse.
True.
Although a 2-player game of Supercars 2 can be entertaining just so you can blow the other guy up.
Yep.
So
this game did support TCP/IP multiplayer, so you could fill up a race full of network players.
That would actually be nice because cool. A top down with single screen.
I could see that being played in computer lab back in the early 2000s.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Cool. So Peter, having spent your 7 minutes with the game, what is your verdict?
Oh Lord.
It's always great when you have to think about it.
Oh Lord. So based on the deep experience that I have with this game, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Mostly for the details and the graphics, the sheer violence, and the options to drop out of the violence. Also, the controls of those games are something to behold. Man, it's not possible to drive straight. It's just.
So 7 out of 10 dead pedestrians.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, the perfect scale.
They saw me coming. They could have gone away. Anyway, it's interesting. I really have never played a game like this.
Really?
I actually might give it another
try something better. Try Rock and Roll Racing.
Oh yeah, that's good as well.
Yeah,
especially if you like your metal. I mean, just check out those versions of Highway Star by Deep Purple, for example. It's brilliant. Chip tunes versions of old metal numbers.
Yeah, and I mean it's by Blizzard. Come on, you can't really go wrong.
But they weren't called Blizzard back then. It was Silicon and Synapse, wasn't it?
Right before.
I know Lost Vikings was Silicon and Synapse.
Yeah,
still.
so I think that was Silicon and Synapse, I believe, and then they were Chaos Studios for Blackwing or Blackhawk or whatever it's called, and then they changed
Blackthorn.
Blackthorn. Yeah.
Blackthorn, yeah.
No, Blackthorn in North America, Blackhawk, I believe, in Europe. Had 2 different names in different territories.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I knew Blackthorn. I'm mostly on this side of the pond.
Yeah. Okay. Really, really good. Excellent. Let's move on to our next contender. I believe, Mads, you're up next. Who chose your titles?
So Peter chose my title.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter, tell us about the 3 games, or tell us which 3 games you chose for.
Okay. For Mads. There were 3 options. The first actually was Freddy Farker's Frontier Pharmacist, but we pretty soon discovered that Mads already played this game.
Or it was a safe guess.
It was a safe guess, so you were like, don't even mention this game because of he's played it. So I didn't even mention this game.
Brilliant game.
Yes, I loved it as well. I really loved it. Actually played a little bit. So then the other version option was The Smurfs for Super Nintendo Entertainment System, a crappy hard jump and run game, which oh lord. So I remember me playing this as being a kid, and oh lord, never got over the second level. Never. And there are so many. I watched a long play the other day, and it's like 5 hours long, and I experienced maybe the first 10 minutes. So much to go. And the option that you actually chose, or that I sent you as the first option, was Daikatana for Game Boy Color.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
so I want to jump right into it.
Yep. So, Mads, are you ready for your 7 minutes in heaven with Daikatana for the Game Boy Color?
As ready as I will be.
Excellent. Let's check it out. Welcome back from your 7 minutes in heaven, Mad. So, for the uninitiated, please describe, based on your 7 minutes, what Daikatana Game Boy Color is.
So Daikatana for the Game Boy Color isn't the Daikatana I was expecting, because I know the PC game, which is a first-person action shooter game, but this was actually just an action RPG. Small, cute action RPG for the Game Boy Color. Quite well done, I think. I only played. I cheated a bit. It wasn't 7 minutes. It was almost 11 minutes. But I could easily see this being a great game if they actually end up telling a good story. And it seems promising from the get go. Actually, they've got this nice graphics trick they do whenever they do storytelling. They switch to black and white, and when the scenes are going on there, it's got some nice animation, and it's a good action RPG that actually has jumping. So there's a bit of platforming as well, even though it's a top-down view, and you whack stuff with your stick, shoot it with your blaster, and go through a tiny role-playing game. That's it, isn't it?
Sounds
so I was
cool.
really surprised, but pleasantly surprised. I was thinking that it would be a real stinker if they tried to recreate the actual Daikatana game on the Game Boy Color.
Game Boy Color FPS. There was one game that tried
that. They do exist. I believe
there was
Stop Skeletons from Fighting has that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I know they did. They wanted to do
that.
a dinosaur one, but that never made it past prototype stage. But yeah. So now, Peter.
Yes.
You chose this game. Why did you choose Daikatana for the Game Boy Color?
Oh, well, this was a pretty it was a pretty hard thought process. You know, there were so many options that I could choose from, and I decided to choose Daikatana because you are always telling me I should play it on the original version, not the Game Boy Color version. So I should play it, and then trying to pick a game for Matt that he hasn't played, I thought, well, maybe go for the Game Boy Color era because, you know, Game Boy Color was actually the first handheld that I have ever played. So, of course, there had to be a Game Boy Color game in my selection. And when I saw Daikatana, I was like, yeah, I should pick this. And I tried it out myself. I played it in German, actually. And other than the English version, which was actually pretty fine, the German subtext were just, oh, Lord. They made sense, kind of.
Kind of?
Kind of. In combination with the weird placement of the cutscenes, they didn't really make sense. So I was like, hey, just give it a go. And I gave it to Matt. So it's the process.
Okay. So basically you just chose it because the name sounded familiar.
I just chose it because.
Do not question Peter. Peter knows what he does.
I do.
I'm sure he chose it just because he knew he'd make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, because Matt and I, we know each other so darn well.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that.
So, yeah, this game's a lot like a Final Fantasy Adventure kind of style.
Yes.
Upgraded to the Game Boy Color. Some neat animations and just a whole plethora of stopping and starting at the beginning because this is a game going into the early 2000s, and that's how you play games now.
Yeah,
That's
lots of tutorializing in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an RPG. I mean, there's going to be a lot of everybody talking and explaining to each other why they're talking or something.
True.
Yeah, no, I was just looking up some of the reviews for this game. They were very middling at the time, but they were still better than for the PC or N64 ports. So there you go. Mm-hmm. That's something to be said for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did play the original Daikatana and put it away. I guess this one I would actually play all the way to the finish. So for me, it seems better than the original game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have just released the Game Boy Color version. All right.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Maybe Ion Storm would still be with us if that was the case.
Oh, wow.
Don't get my hopes up.
Oh, come on. You want them to come back?
I like Deus Ex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that
was
wasn't
a brilliant game.
That wasn't the same Ion Storm. That
I
was Ion Storm.
But there was Anachronox. Anachronox is kind of interesting.
Interesting is the right word for that game.
I'm not making any grand claims here.
Actually, that would have been an interesting one for 7 Minutes in Heaven. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I was just thinking. Whenever you say, "Oh, this is an interesting game," it's really something that I fail horribly at. So, also for 7 minutes.
Let me put it this way: it's not quite Omicron, not the virus, the game, but yeah, it's weird.
Yes, they're both of the same era and milieu.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, Daikatana.
Let's get experimental. Yeah, no, definitely worth checking out. Yeah. Okay, then, Mads, what would be your final word on Daikatana?
My final word? If you like your action RPGs and you like your Game Boy Color, pick it up. It seems like good fun.
Very cool. Okay, then that concludes Mads' 7 Minutes in Heaven.
Ooh.
So whose turn is it?
That's me.
I believe you're up.
Ooh.
I think I am.
So
yes.
I picked Ethan's games.
Yep,
and of course, knowing that Ethan was going to be playing my games, I wanted him to experience some games from the best platform ever made.
The Game Boy?
No, it isn't the Game Boy.
The Virtual Boy?
No, not the Virtual Boy either.
The Casio Loopy?
No. No, it's actually, of course, the Amiga. So I picked 3 Amiga games, 3 Amiga classics for me. The first one was Cannon Fodder from 1993 by Sensible Software, of course, a classic that everybody who knows the Amiga will have played to death, but I was thinking maybe Ethan hadn't. And the second one was Turrican 2. I forget, that is from 91, actually, of course, by Rainbow Arts,
Factor 5.
by Manfred Trenz and all of the good guys there. Did they all? Yeah, and Chris Helsbeck.
No, Manfred Trenz only did the C64 version, which was the original. The port to the Amiga was done by Factor 5.
Oh, yeah, that's true. The Factor 5 guys. Great platformer, action platformer. And the last one was Eric Chahi's masterpiece, Another World, or Out of This World if you're in the US, which is one of my favorite Amiga games as well. Brilliant game. But this was an easy one because, Ethan, you hadn't played Cannon Fodder, had you?
No. Amiga emulation is hard, guys. It's not plug and play, okay? So I had to figure this out, but I did. I played Cannon Fodder for the Amiga on from the emulator Amiga 500.
Okay. So you used the FSUAE, I guess, right?
Yes.
Well, with FSUAE, it's quite easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good.
Relatively speaking.
Okay.
Okay, so you've already given away that we're not actually playing it in the order that we're doing. Thank you for destroying that illusion, Ethan. So,
you've done this several times already. I do not.
Okay, we're just going to cue the music. We'll play a little bit of the intro theme tune.
You're not even asking me if I'm ready? All right. That's how you feel, Karl? All right.
Dude, I'm trying to provide an ambiance for our listeners. Don't
with these, so.
By lying to them. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I feel like too, personally.
Also, I am going to play the intro music because it is the greatest theme song to a game ever recorded.
True.
So, see, Mads agrees with me, so it's gospel truth.
Oh yes,
okay.
It's brilliant. I can tell you some stories about
Amiga
that theme song and the song you hear when your little soldiers die and you see their little crosses on Boot Hill.
Okay, let's do this.
Never been so much fun. 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 Talk to your brother, kill him with your gun, leave him lying in his uniform, dying in the sun.
So, Ethan, having spent 7 minutes with Cannon Fodder.
Cannon Fodder for the Amiga.
Explain to everybody what Cannon Fodder is.
Cannon Fodder is a tactical game, which you play with the mouse. It's, if you have a vague sense of how you control Diablo, it's kind of like that. You lead around a squad of characters, and you left left click to move and you right click to attack, and you go around and you eliminate the enemy, do objectives, all those sorts of things, like Company of Heroes or something like that, kind of proto RTS in a way.
Yeah.
Good description.
It reminded me of like a more action version of the old game Commandos. I had played that before I had played Cannon Fodder, because I know Commandos came out much afterwards. But
yeah, Commandos was definitely inspired by Cannon Fodder. There's no doubt.
Yeah. That was one of the games that I was trying to think of. I couldn't remember. It's like, oh, yeah, that game published by Surtech. What's that called? Yeah, Commandos.
Yeah.
There also used to be a great game on AdultSwim.com called Mucineries, and it was basically Cannon Fodder, but with cats. Absolutely awesome.
But, so you go on these various missions and scenarios, and you have permanent consequences. If somebody dies, they die, they get their own little monument upon the hill at the front screen, and you keep recruiting new soldiers and eliminating the enemy. It has various anti-war messaging throughout, but it also makes it fun. Isn't that great, kids? Fun anti-war.
Well, as they sing, war has never been so much fun.
Was that the tagline?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they sing in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
War, never been so much fun. Okay.
Yeah, and it continues. Go up to your brother, shoot him with your gun. So all light-headed fun. Yeah, that's good. Light-hearted fun.
Shoot him with your gun. Leave him lying in it.
In his uniform,
dying in the sun.
Yes.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, we only played a little bit of it, but there's an intro song which is played from a mod file on the disc. So you can tell this is late in the Amiga lifespan. I believe 93, right, Matt?
Yeah, 93.
Cannon Fodder from 1993 by Sensible Software, one of the defining developers for the Amiga.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, shoot 'em up construction kit, Whizball.
Yeah, WizKid.
Yeah, these guys can go off and talk at their own little thing over there. But let me just say that this game is fairly intuitive, except for the fact that you can throw grenades by holding down one mouse button and then clicking the other mouse button, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they should use a couple keys on the keyboard if it's going to get more complex later. But ultimately, within the 7 minutes that I played, I definitely was impressed.
As you well should be.
Yeah.
Now, you actually played Megalomania at some point.
Otherwise, you're going to be very disappointed in my reaction, I think.
Now, Mads, you chose this game, and we have done Megalomania before on the 7 Minutes in Heaven. So give us a little bit of background on this game, in addition to what Ethan has already told us.
You're going to have to stop me, I think. This is one of my favorite games ever. I love Sensible Software, and pretty much every game they've made. They haven't made a single stinker. It's just brilliant, top-notch games, all of them. Sensible Soccer probably being there. No, not probably. Definitely being their biggest success. But I'm not really into football or soccer, so I've always played that as a multiplayer game with my friends, but the Cannon Fodder and Megalomania on the Amiga that was my jam. Megalomania actually included tech trees before Civilization came along and did the same, for example, a brilliant RTS. And Cannon Fodder just made it more actiony. It still has the controls of a modern RTS, really, and in the later levels it becomes a strategic game. In the beginning it's very arcadey and very action oriented, but later on it definitely becomes a strategic game. You need to split up your little squad into multiple squads, and you need to make sure that the grenades go with this group and the bazooka rockets or whatever they're called go with that group, and you need to use vehicles and make jumps and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's really a brilliant game. I love so much about this, all the little details, like all your soldiers. We talked about how they rise in rank. So you start up with Jules, Jobs, and Stu. I think in the first mission probably just Jules and Jobs. So that's the developers and from the games of Jules Jameson did the program design. Stu did all the graphics design, and Jobs is John Hare, who did the actual game design for this, and is a co-founder of Sensible Software. And I would always do everything I could to keep those three guys alive. So when I entered a hard mission later on, I'd split them up, have those three in one group, and they would only do the easy stuff. And then some of the other guys like Richard Joseph, RJ, and Ubik, and all the others, they'd be Cannon Fodder. So I've just sent them out to do the dirty work. And then in the end, I'd have these superheroes, these 3-star generals that could shoot really, really accurately and really, really far. And you need that to actually progress, because as Ethan said, Amiga games have an knack for being really, really hard later on. And Cannon Fodder is definitely guilty of that.
You've never actually finished it, have you?
No. I've never finished it. There are some missions later on that just become so devilishly hard. So I do want to finish it at some point. So maybe that's one of the games I should put on my list. I have this little list of games that I never finished back in the day. I'm working really hard on Jumpman Jr. these days, for example. But
wow.
There are these games that I played so much as a kid, so I want to get through them at some point. And Cannon Fodder definitely should be on that list. But yeah, this is a brilliant game. And yes, the sound design is so good. It's very atmospheric. Actually, if you play it, there's a lot of stereo separation here. So if you play it on a proper sound setup, you'll get that you can actually hear where stuff is coming from. And there's so many little, like, a bird squawking flying across the screen.
Yeah, it has a very clean and polished presentation, despite the low resolution in order to get all the stuff on screen.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Maybe not low resolution, but the sprites are small.
Yeah,
they're like made out of like
tiny 12
pixels or something.
Yeah, but very expressive still, I think.
I was impressed how smooth all the animations were and the screen scrolling back and forth. That it's just so smooth. This is related to the developers that did Worms, correct?
No. Worms is done by Team 17, and this is a completely different team.
But there's an Amiga style that you can kind of see.
Okay.
Lemmings and Megalomania and Worms, they all kind of come from the same idea.
Right. I guess I had it's like the Amiga grouping in my head, but I definitely got those vibes where it's just
there's not just one developer for the Amiga, John.
No. Lemmings is, of course, from DMA Design, who also did Grand Theft Auto. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There you go.
Have to bring that up every time, don't you?
Well, this is how I learn, so please drop knowledge on my good stuff, you guys.
But this is just one of my favorite games, and it is on the best platform ever made. So I need to have Ethan play that, of course.
If it's not on the Virtual Boy, then I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, at least you still have your eyesight, mate.
You sure about that? All right. Yeah. So
okay.
That was Cannon Fodder.
Ethan, what would be your final judgment?
I would definitely play more of Cannon Fodder. The Amiga is definitely a blank spot for me in terms of actually playing the games. I've seen many of the big games, but I definitely think that I could go for this for a while. But once it hits that wall, I don't think I'm going to go beyond that. It's not that compelling yet. Anyway.
Very cool. Okay, well then, that concludes Cannon Fodder. I believe I'm up next then.
Yes, you are, Mr. Karl, indeed.
And you, Mr. Ethan, were the one who chose my games.
Yes, I did. So I like to go for the quite obscure and pre-NES, just because I love to see kind of the interesting thought experiments that were going on in some of the mid 80s to late 70s arcade games. Well, other way around. So first of all, I chose the furthest one forward I chose was a Pitfall clone on the ColecoVision called Cabbage Patch Kids Adventures in the Park. It's not just a Pitfall clone. It's actually more like Pitfall 2 in a lot of ways. But before that, I had Microwave, which is a very interesting kind of maze game of a sort that was done by Jim Nichols, who I did a post on recently on my blog. But there was a game which was before all that, which Karl had not played, and I don't think many people have played. It is called Blasto by Gremlin. Released only by Gremlin. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and so I am, even though I kind of really was interested in playing the Cabbage Patch game, just because I remember seeing that one back in the day going, what the hell is a game based on the Cabbage Patch Kids? But let's hit Blasto and see how I do.
Yeah.
So, Karl, How describe to people who have never played Blasto before what it was like based on your 7 minutes
Carl.
in heaven. Why, thank you, Karl. I will now
you don't need to do this, Karl. Why don't you tell us about Blasto? How about that, Karl?
Well, Blasto is a game where you play a tiny little pickaxe that shoots laser beams out of the handle, and you move through a randomly generated
It's
map.
not randomly generated.
It's not randomly generated?
Nope.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, what seems to be a randomly generated map filled with blank spaces, rocks, and mines, and you have a limited amount of time to move through there, position yourself, and shoot all the mines before the time runs out. Now, the mines, when they explode, if they explode close enough to other mines, will cause chain reactions.
Yeah, they have the minesweeper, one space thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they basically, the whole thing is on a grid, so you're not freely moving, you're moving from space to space. Think of it as an overhead version of Dungeon Master or Eye of the Beholder. And you are trying to figure out the most efficient way of shooting all of the mines before the time runs out. So I think that describes it. And the main goal of the game is basically if you do destroy them all, you get a free game. And yeah, there are no enemies or anything else.
More points.
More points. And this was from 1978, designed by Gremlin, apparently. So,
yes.
Ethan, educate us.
All right, so this was a game that was made on the Blockade hardware. Blockade, you might recognize as the Tron light cycles and Snake and all that. That's coming forward in the book later. You'll get to learn all about the specific production of this stuff. But as I was moving into production of the book, Lane Houck, who is the designer of this game, dug up a spec document on this game that he had. So from 1978, he defined what the game was going to be, and then they started testing it and all this stuff. He gave all that stuff to me, and I thought this was very interesting. And I'm like, wow, he actually really feels something for Blasto, and so I should take a second look at it because I thought it was just an oddity. And then actually, when you look at it, it's like, it is kind of minesweepery in a way. Like there is a zenness to it if you start getting into the groove.
Definitely, and it helps if you're not using an analog controller on a modern controller, but instead using a D-pad or maybe even a keyboard cursor layout.
Yes, because back in the day, even though we think of the joystick as having kind of free range motion, actually it's just hitting switches inside the thing. So it's entirely just like a D-pad, but it's just held in a different sort of way.
Yeah.
Now, for those uninitiated, this is Gremlin now. They later on get bought up by Sega, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so but this is pre the Sega buyout.
Yeah, this was I think the last game they put out before the Sega buyout.
Okay.
And then they were working on a couple games that they later put out under the Sega Gremlin name. But this is the very last game that Gremlin released as an independent entity. And actually, as I learned recently, there was a port of it to the TI-99 4A.
Wow.
Strangely enough. So it must have had... What's that?
Official port or just...
well, supposedly it was official. It's weird because the trademark on it says like trademark of Milton Bradley, Blasto. I mean, it's identical gameplay and everything, and they never filed for a trademark or any of that stuff. So I'm just confused about it. But they did Blasto and they did another game from Gremlin that I can't. Yeah, I'm blanking on it at the top of my head right now, but it must have had some kind of reach if it was, noted enough that they decided to make a port of it to early home computers.
Yeah. So in the TI-99 version, it actually your little ship actually looks like a tank. It's supposed to be a tank. It actually doesn't.
Yeah, there's some weird things with the aesthetic and everything, but it was very, very limited. Like there's two kind of things that they were doing with this hardware. One of them was kind of filling out the screen, which is how Blockade kind of operated, and so that's what this game is. You can put on literally every tile some sprite. basically. So that's I think what they were kind of going for. They the two people who worked on this, Lane Houck, Bill Blewett, and then also Bob Pecoraro did the sound, but you didn't hear any of the sound. I think
the listeners just heard it because I'll put in some of the sound as the intermission.
Okay.
We didn't hear it because I didn't record it on the video. So yes.
So they don't remember a whole lot about this stuff. So that's another reason it was especially cool to get that production document. So I got old design documents hanging around, y'all. Good times.
Nice. Are you gonna
really
be able to post some links to those before we? When we go
I haven't asked Lane about whether I can share that. So
okay, cool.
Well, I'll look into it.
Now this was running on an 8080, you said,
yes, an Intel 8080 board. That was just it had, the couple custom components and like the sound and everything, but otherwise it was just this very basic early programmable hardware.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
So Karl, what is your evaluation of Blasto from 1978?
For a game from 78, we're talking pre-Space Invaders. This is actually a very compelling title. I did not expect to have as many things on the screen. Obviously, the scrolling makes it a little bit difficult. I'm kind of interested. I don't think I'd go back to the arcade version of it, but I definitely would give the TI version a go.
Okay, there we are. Final evaluation on Blasto. Everybody play it right now. Thanks. Goodbye.
So that leaves only one player left. John.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I guess so.
Now, I was the one who chose the games that you were going to play. Number 3 on my list was an Amiga title, Rick Dangerous from Core Design.
Oh, yes.
You could say the predecessor to Lara Croft in many, many ways.
If you're weird.
That did not get
brilliant game.
Yeah, that did not get chosen. The next one was Creatures 2 by Thalmus for the Commodore 64, because I thought maybe it might be fun to watch you spend 7 minutes on the same screen. Because while Creatures 1 was difficult, Creatures 2 is a whole new level of pain. Brilliantly animated, though. And instead, we went with the top pick, which anybody who knows me will find this in no way whatsoever surprising. I chose Project Firestart.
Of course you did.
Of course, because any chance to get people to play that game is a chance I will take. John, are you ready?
I think so.
Excellent.
So I ended up with 2 videos out of this one. We're gonna run through my honest 7 minutes in heaven version, and then including all my technical difficulties with my unfamiliarity with the Commodore. I apologize in advance, guys, because it gets real rough, but I did record an honest 7 minutes afterwards, so we may or may not visit that, but just fair warning. But let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay.
All right.
So, John, based on your 7 minutes with Project Firestart, how would you describe the game to people who have not played it before?
Wow, I would definitely describe it as a sci-fi survival horror style game. It has a lot of vibes from a lot of the Sierra King's Quest style games with some of the difficulty, and just it's more you're definitely controlling the character with a controller and directions as opposed to just clicking and walk over there type thing. So it's a little more action adventure-y with that survival element, but everything is placed purposefully in the game. And you're running around. You've got a laser. Apparently you can swap the laser out for other lasers that I did not know through that run. I apologize. But yeah, it's neat. You can tell that the whole game. I noticed from the backgrounds too, until it like just watching this video now that like the views of space was you being on the outer ring of this space station running along the side, and then there was ones where you could actually see into the inside of the space station. So if you picture like what was that, 2001 with the circle style spaceship, I thought that was really cool. I like the attention to detail. But yeah, I just described this game as just it's an action adventure, sci-fi, horror, survival game.
Now, this was purely a disc game, right, Karl? Or did it come out on cartridge?
No, this would have been a 4 disc side game.
4 disc side. Jesus.
Yeah, and you played a cartridge hack of it. The one thing that was not fun was the constant turning of the discs.
But at least it primed you for the Amiga. So.
So I did originally try the game, and it came in a disc 1 side A, side B, and then a disc 2.
Yeah.
So that I understand that would be the native way, just in the simplicity of me being able to record something for this episode. I went with the hard drive image, and I was also trying something different because the disc images that I had also had that trainer built into it, which I'm finding is very indicative of the time.
Yeah, not a lot of people owned this game when it came out. It didn't last very long on the shelves. EA didn't really seem interested in promoting it, and Dynamics, the company that developed it, had already signed a development deal with Activision. They left EA, and this was the last game on their EA contract that sort of got pushed out. And so there's 1 or 2 Activision games by them that actually get released before Project Firestart. I think it's Die Hard and one other one. Maybe it was one of the DOS port of The Train get released before this.
Got it.
Or that was Accolade. Can't remember. Their Activision contract had already started by the time Firestart comes out.
So this was also quite late in the C64's lifetime. So
this was
probably
89 with a copyright of 88 on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was familiar with Dynamics, not Dynamics. Had a brain part there earlier. With a lot of the DOS ports, I played a lot of Red Bands. Aces Over Europe was the first one of them that I played like later on.
The Incredible Machine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's another one.
Love that.
Don't bring it up around Karl.
Rise of the Dragon, Adventures of Willie Beamish. They did all sorts of stuff. Heart of China.
Yeah.
Of course, they get bought by Sierra later and then become kind of a backbone for their development. Yeah.
Well, the Sierra buyout happens very shortly after this. They only do a handful of games for Activision, and because they were so efficient at releasing games, that's when Ken Williams is like, you guys ship 10 products in 1 year? No, I'm buying you. And that's basically how Sierra ends up buying them. That's how that came about. And I talked to the lead designer on this game, Damon Sly, and he talked about how the game is developed as a response to Karateka. So I think it was it Joey Barra? As some high mucking up at EA gave them the assignment to basically one-up Karateka. And so that's where they landed on the sci-fi action-adventure concept. And it is kind of sad because it came out right around the time when EA, or was in development just as EA dropped their major support for the Amiga, and that's why this becomes a C64 exclusive. It gets no port to DOS because it's just shy of DOS becoming really relevant. And at the same time, the Amiga is already dead, and it's not a title that would have done well on console, even if EA had been actively publishing on consoles. So
yeah, this seems like a concept that they would have had to, PR sell really hard. I feel like there's people who would have. It feels like one of those things that like it might have that cult following if you're like really into the lore and all of that. But I could see somebody who just picks it up, pops it in, and plays it. It's not as easy a pickup if you're not into the sci-fi style that this game presents.
Definitely. And at the time, the reviewers were also a little mixed on it. They couldn't quite figure out what the game was supposed to be. I mean, it's survival horror as we know it today, the Resident Evil Alone in the Dark style, but at a time when you're just not expecting, to be able to roam openly around this empty place. And yes, Ethan calls that bad game design, but it's called discovering an atmosphere as opposed to
Karl over here ignoring Zombie, the first true real survival horror game. Come on.
No, yeah, okay, Zombie, but Zombie it isn't really real time in the same sense.
Oh, by Ubisoft actually.
Yes,
developed
by
for
Ubisoft.
the Amstrad CPC, if I recall correctly.
That was the original version. Gets ports to Atari ST.
Yes, later
can't
on.
remember if the Amiga got a port or not.
I think so.
Yeah, could
I've been
be.
C64 too. Anyways, we're not talking about Zombie.
Yeah, I don't know about
you'll
Zombie.
come-
You guys can talk about that amongst yourselves.
Come back around when you do your back 2027. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, Zombie was Ubisoft's officially first game that they ever made, and it was basically a video game adaptation of what was it, Day of the Dead.
Oh.
No, not Night. It's
Zio-
Day. It's the one in the shopping mall, and it recreates that movie basically 1-to-1, but without the license.
Oh, cool. And that's ZOMBI.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's the same reason why when their first game for the Wii U was called Zombie U, also without an E, because it was basically using the same trademark name.
Got it. I did not know that. I learned something today.
See, wisdom here.
Yeah.
So John, summing it all up, what's your final verdict on Project Firestart?
I really liked it. Personally, I plan on revisiting this one. I'm a sucker for these like sci-fi requires a bit to get into and just like willing to sink time and understand it. But I could see somebody who doesn't like that not liking the game. Of course, with the our Retro Game Squad style is I don't really give like an X out of X type thing. It's like it's I can see the audience that it's for. It's definitely not a terrible game. It's just if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea.
Definitely. Okay, well, everybody, we have made it through our 7-minute in heaven spectacular. Yes,
Karl.
100 episodes. It's kind of scary. Guys, I'm going to say this heartfelt. I thank you very much for being a part of this project. When I started it back in November of 2008, it was just me doing it. And I probably would not have made it to 100 episodes just talking to myself. So okay, probably
Peter knows
but
you.
still.
Peter knows you.
No, but seriously, guys, thank you very much for joining me on this journey.
Oh.
I look forward to the next 100 episodes and beyond, and I hope that all of our listeners, the 4 of you out there, really appreciate
come on.
the effort.
Come on, Karl. Give the big love
every-
to all the listeners out there, the many hundreds of thousands that listen to Video Game Newsroom Time Machine every month.
You mean you're assuming that there's literally a stadium full of people listening simultaneously to what
Why
I'm saying?
can't it be
'Cause that's
that
the
way,
only
Karl?
way that we get
Why
the
can't
download
it be
numbers
that
to
way?
work with that math. Okay. Okay, guys. Any final words before we close this thing out?
Thanks so much, Mr. Karl.
Yeah, thanks for having
Anytime.
us.
Yeah. I'm honored to be part of this 100th episode. It's been cool. You took me on late into the project, and I appreciate you let me in and having some fun with you guys.
Peter?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was from the very beginning that you dragged me into this project, and I didn't regret any recording that we did. I didn't regret any late time recording
really
that
has.
we did. Recording until 2 a.m. after working for 10 hours, so I really enjoyed that.
And here's to 100
And
more.
the fact
How
that we
about
got
that?
through this now,
No, it's really great to be part of this project.
I appreciate it. Okay, guys. So, everybody, have fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you've enjoyed another Video Game Newsroom Time Machine interview. You can leave us comments on Twitter, Instagram, and if you like what we're doing here, drop us a couple of bucks on Patreon. All the links are in the description below.